Ladies and gentlemen, federal employees, when is the best age? Whether 62, 67, or 70, when is the best age for federal employees like you to take Social Security? You've paid into the system your entire career. You want to make sure you get the most out of the system for you. And believe me, there's no one size fits all. There's pros and cons of each age to take it. So today we're going to talk about 62, 67, and 70. Say, okay, what are all the pros and cons that you can confidently say for you that when you're taking it actually is the best? You're not following, what some expert might say. Generally, you want to hone this in for your situation specifically. So let's talk about it. Now, before we can talk about the pros and cons of taking it at these different ages, let's briefly talk about the overarching system. How does this work? Basically, Social Security in a nutshell, they calculate your Social Security benefits based on the 35 years of working history. Now, this does not just include your federal service. This includes all working history that you paid into Social Security. And that calculation basically will tell them how much benefits you should get from Social Security at your full retirement age. Now, your full retirement age will be between 66 and 67, depending on your birthday. If you're on the younger side, it's going to be 67. And basically how Social Security works is your full retirement age is when you get, quote unquote, 100% of your benefit. If you take it before then, you get less. If you take it after, you get more. The range that you're going to want to consider taking benefits is between 62 and 70, okay? And the increases you get by delaying go monthly, meaning if you wait till 62 in 6 months, you're going to get more than if you waited just to 62. If you wait until 62 in 7 months, you're going to get a little bit more. These increases happen monthly. You don't have to wait until the next big age increment. You can do monthly and get the increases over time. Now, let me show you an example of how these increases actually work. So basically, let's say that your full retirement age is age 67, all right? As you can see, if that's true, you would get 100% of your benefit at 67. But if you take it sooner, you get less. For example, at age 62, you get 70% of your benefit. At 70, you get 124%. Basically, for the first few years of delaying past 62, you get a 5% per year increase. Of course, again, they break it down into 12 pieces and do monthly. So if you make it halfway between 62 and 63, you get half of that 5%. But again, it comes out to about 5% per year. For the next few years, you get about 6%, a little bit more than 6%. And then if you delay past your full retirement age, you get an average of 8% per year increases by waiting. Okay, so now that you understand the basics of how Social Security works, let's talk about the pros and cons of taking it at different ages. Let's start at 62. Now, if you didn't know, you can actually start benefits as early as 60 if your spouse has passed away, and you can collect survivor benefits off of them. So if that applies to you, definitely look that up. I'm not going to talk about that very much, but just know if you're eligible for survivor benefits from a deceased spouse, you can get benefits as early as 60. So definitely look into that. But otherwise, if you're trying to take just your own benefits or your spouse is still alive, 62 is the earliest you can start benefits, okay? So here's some of the first advantages. Number one, you can get money now, which is huge, right? Some people simply don't have the privilege of being able to delay Social Security because they simply need the money. They have to retire, they need the money. And if you don't take Social Security, normally it means having to pull extra from your investments, so your TSP. So you taking it right away means you don't have to deplete your investments as much. Now, not everyone has to deplete investments when delaying Social Security, but most people, that's what they would have to do, is that if they're retired and they're choosing to delay Social Security, they would, of course, have to take more from investments. So we'd have to take that into account. As your investments, if you're drawing more from them than you otherwise would, then, of course, you'll get less growth over time and your money will deplete faster. So taking Social Security will put less pressure on your TSP, on your investments over time, which is really nice. And by the way, basically, if you didn't know, because if you take it at 62, you get a smaller benefit, but it's for a longer period of time. If you delay, then of course you get a bigger benefit for a shorter amount of time. So basically if you do the math, there's normally a break even, basically an age to which if you live, you would be better off or you'll get more benefits out of the system by delaying. So let me give you an example. The normal break even for comparing different ages, anywhere from 77 to 81, normally late 70s, early 80s, depending on what ages we're comparing here. But basically what that means is if you take it at 62, You will get more benefits out of the system if you pass away before these ages. But if you live beyond these ages, you would get more benefits out of the system had you delayed some. Okay, that's what the break even is talking about. Again, you can look up. There's some great break even calculators you can use online to calculate exactly what yours is, but this is roughly where it normally falls for most people. However, just keep in mind, most of these break even calculators don't take into account the extra money you would have had to pull from TSP. So for the break even for most people, it's actually beyond these ages, but on 77 and 81, once you take into account how much extra you have to pull from TSP in the meantime. Okay. Now, even if you're in, let's say, great health and you know you're going to live beyond this, sometimes, again, you just need the money now. It just depends. It's just something to keep in mind is to know about the break even, know that it exists, right? And to make sure that it applies to you, okay? But here's a couple things to worry about. Number one, there is an earnings limit. So if you're taking Social Security at 62 and you're also working a job, if you make less than $23,000, then no problem at all. But if you make more than that $23,000 limit, and it's not exactly $23,000, you could look up the exact earnings limit for the year you're watching this, but it's around $23,000 for 2025. If you make more than that limit, they're going to start actually deducing how much your Social Security benefits are every month based on how much you're actually earning from that job. Now, this earnings limit, they do not count retirement income. They don't count your federal pension or TSP withdrawals or anything like that. They only count active income, whether it's, hey, you own a business, you're making money from actively being involved in that, or you have a job, part-time, full-time, whatever, and make more than the $23,000. That's when the earnings limit comes into play. So if you're still working, it rarely makes sense to take it at 62 or right away because there's an earnings limit. Now, this earnings limit does go away once you hit 67. So if you're working in your 60s, you probably don't want to turn on benefits until at least 67 or when you're done working. Okay. Now, what about family benefits? So what do I mean by family benefits? Well, if you didn't know that when you start your benefits, if you have young kids, minor kids in your home still that are dependents, they may be able to get benefits every month as well on top of your own benefits. I'm not going to go into this a lot because that's a whole other discussion, but just know that this exists. So if you've got really young kids that you're going to be in your 60s and they're still going to be in your home, look up family benefits because it may be worth you starting your benefits early so that they actually can get some benefits while they're in your home. Because if you just wait until they're grown, like maybe you're 67 now and they're out of the house and you start benefits then, of course they won't get any benefits at that point because they're already out of the house. They're not dependents anymore. So look into that if you think that applies to you. Otherwise, of course, you don't have to worry about the family benefits. Now, let's talk about 67. So again, we just spoke about 62 and all the pros and cons. Here is 67, okay? One huge advantage of taking it at 67 is, of course, that increases your benefits, your Social Security benefits, which is great. And if you didn't know, Social Security at the very most is only 85% taxable, meaning if you get $1,000 from Social Security, only $850 of that will actually count as taxable income. Some comes tax-free, which is really, really nice. So actually, $1 from Social Security is worth more than $1 pulling from your traditional TSP, right? After tax. So increasing your Social Security over time is really nice because tax-wise, again, you don't have to pay as much of it in taxes. And if you are married, there's another factor to consider. It's survivor benefits. So let me paint you a picture. Let's say that your benefits are $3,000 a month at your full retirement age, all right? And let's say your spouse was a stay-at-home mom, stay-at-home parent, whatever, and they don't really have much of their own benefit. Let's say their own benefit would only be $500, okay? So when you're both alive, you both can, of course, get your own benefits. They actually may be eligible to get spousal benefits, actually get more than this while you're both alive. I won't go into that today. But if, let's say, you pass away and you're the high earner, they will actually inherit your higher benefit. Theirs would drop off, and they would start receiving your $3,000 benefit, okay? So what that means is when you start your own benefits as the higher earner matters a lot. If you start your benefits at 62 and now your benefits are only $2,000, well, that's what they're going to inherit and have for the rest of their life as well. If you delay till 67, now your benefits are $4,000. then again, that locks in for them for the rest of their life as well. So sometimes, even if, let's say, you're not in great health, maybe sometimes it does make sense for you to delay past 62 just to lock in a higher benefit for your spouse over time. That's definitely something to consider. All right. Now, 67 for many people is kind of a nice balance where you're not taking it right away at 62, but you're not delaying all the way till 70 either. It's kind of in that middle where you're getting some of the benefits of both. You're getting some money out right away without having to wait all the way till 70. So for some people, again, it's a nice balance. But again, you want to check the break-even age for you to say, okay, how long would it take me to break even if I did delay to 67? Is that worth it to you, taking into account your spouse's benefits as well, and would they inherit yours if something happened to you? All right. Now let's talk about 70. At 70, the biggest benefit is the fact that you are maxing out your Social Security. This is, again, you'll get 124% of your full retirement age benefit. That's the most you can possibly get from Social Security. And you've got that locked in for the rest of your life, which is really, really, really awesome. That's great, right? And honestly, from a longevity standpoint and just having a safer retirement standpoint, that can be super helpful because it locks in for the rest of your life and you're less reliant on, let's say, your investments from that point on. Right? If you've got a higher just fixed income from Social Security, from your pension, you probably just don't need as much from TSP once you've, of course, locked in this high benefit. All right. And another benefit of delaying till 70 or delaying at all is that you can do what they call Roth conversions before 70, right? If you're not familiar with Roth conversions, it's basically the process of getting money from a pre-tax account like your traditional TSP and getting it over to a Roth account like Roth TSP or Roth IRA. And it's really nice to have low income years to do that sort of thing. So if you're able to delay Social Security past normal, the early ages, you may have some low income years where you can get some of these Roth conversions done before Social Security kicks in and pops you up into, let's say, a potentially higher tax bracket. All right. And of course, like I mentioned before, you lock in a super high benefit for if you're married for your spouse if they have less benefits than you. Right? Locking in at 70 is really helpful for your lifetime, but also theirs. But of course, the one big downside of waiting until 70, you have to wait till 70. And that's 8 whole years where you get nothing out of the system. All right. So as you can probably tell, there's no perfect age for everybody. You have to weigh the pros and cons and say, okay, what factors actually matter to me? What about my spouse? What benefits will they get to make sure that you find a solution that balances all the best things for you in your situation? Because some things matter to you, some things don't. You want to make sure you get the most out of this because honestly, in retirement, there's a few decisions that matter a lot, and Social Security is one of those. So if you're looking for help to maximize your federal benefits and help with decisions like this, or whether it be managing your TSP or any of these big retirement decisions, feel free to check out the description. Here at our firm, we help feds do this all the time, but I hope this is helpful information. Have a great day. We'll see you guys in the next video.